8:00, almost 8:05 here on Wednesday. A new poll shedding light on how Michiganders feel about the state of everything right now. The poll done by the Detroit Regional Chamber and the Glengariff Group talked about how everything is affecting Michiganders, the economy, even how Detroiters are feeling about the mayoral race. Let's take a look at just some of the data. This was a very long document. We try to pull out some highlights here, starting with how Michigan is doing. A majority of Michigan voters believe the state is on the right track. That number stands at 51.5%, while 33.7% say it is on the wrong track. When it comes to the economy, about 59% see the economy weakening, while 38% say it is growing. And finally, about 39% of voters expect a recession to hit next year. To go over all these numbers, Sandy Baroa, the president of the Detroit Regional Chamber. Sandy, thank you so much for being here.
No, good to be here.
I'm not sure if any of the numbers were surprising or more of a reinforcement as to how many people are feeling right now. What do you think?
Well, certainly the weight of all of the policy changes are definitely impacting how people feel about their own job security, how they feel about Michigan's overall economic health. And one of the most interesting trends that we've seen, certainly during COVID, is where you stand politically and how you feel about either the president or the party in power really impacts how you view things.
Where have those trends been? What do you see?
So if you are a loyal Republican and you are a supporter of Donald Trump, you see things in a much more positive light. I'll give you an example. We've been asking for 5 or 6 years now, how well are you doing compared to a year ago? And consistently, Michiganders are saying at about 75%, hey, I'm doing as well, if not better than I was a year ago. The question is, you know, when the Democrats were in charge, when like Biden was president, more Democrats felt that way and Republicans didn't feel that way. Now that you have a Republican Congress and a Republican president, Republicans are feeling, yeah, I'm feeling great. The Democrats are like, oh, I don't feel so great.
Right.
But the overall number's the same.
Yeah. I am curious. We talked about the state of Michigan being on track. And a good majority of people say they do feel it is headed in the right direction. Was your sample the majority of Detroit residents, or did you look at the entire state?
Yeah, so we use the same pollster that Channel 4 does, the Glengariff Group. So this is a statewide poll, and they are very diligent. I mean, you know, there's a lot of polls out there that are like internet polls or, you know.
You don't know who to
polls.
trust anymore.
Exactly right. These are very high-level scientific polls. This is actually conducted by human pollsters, actually talking to other humans who actually answer the phone, and they have a whole, you know, methodology to make sure that, you know, we've got enough people responding from the UP or West Michigan or Mid-Michigan.
What's interesting there is that when you talk to Detroiters, a lot of them feel like the city is on the right path. You know, downtown versus the neighborhoods is an entirely separate conversation, right? But then when you go outside of Detroit, some people feel like momentum has stalled. And I didn't see that in the numbers here. But maybe that's not as top of conversation as I thought it was.
Well, some of Richard's polling shows that if you go back 10, 12, 15 years and you ask Detroiters, are you interested in leaving the city?
Right.
Over 40% said, yes, I'm interested in leaving the city in X period of time.
Sure.
In this most recent poll from the Glengariff Group, that number's into the teens now.
Right. Right. I do want to talk more about the gubernatorial race as well. Those numbers impacting that race for governor. Here's the results from that poll. Voters asked if they would be interested in an independent candidate for governor. Obviously, it's a pointed question right now because current Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan is running as an independent. More than 55% are interested in voting for that independent candidate, while 23% are not. 15% say it depends. A lot of questions on this. First of all, do you think those numbers are kind of connected to the independent candidate that's running right now?
I think that's exactly right, Nick. So first of all, people have been saying forever, I mean literally for the last 25 years, that they're interested in an independent campaign for Senate, for governor, even for president, right? Gallup's most recent polling shows that that number's past 60% nationally. So why don't independent candidates win? And I can tell you why. There's two reasons. One
is money.
That's part of it. Yes, it's hard for an independent to raise money. But number one, people, say, oh, theoretically, I'll vote for an independent. Now you have to put a name in the frame. And one of two things happens. One, a name gets in that frame, Sandy Brew, and they say, oh, I know Sandy Brew. He's a nut. I'm not voting for him, right? Or it's like, I've never heard of Sandy Brew. I'm not voting for someone I don't know. Mike Duggan takes all of that off the table.
Sure.
Gives him a competitive advantage. People know him, people like him, and even though he's not as well known as maybe some of the other candidates on the west side, he's closing that gap fast.
Which is a very interesting conversation, because I think all of the conversations surrounding him running for governor have been, he is a well-known name and he is a force to be reckoned with in the city of Detroit. You go to Holland, Grand Rapids, Muskegon, Traverse City, Cadillac, they know Mike Duggan, but they don't know Mike Duggan. Where do you think that falls come actual election time?
Yeah, well, first of all, he's still busy being the mayor of Michigan's largest city, right? So he's, once he's done being mayor, he's got to spend more time in other parts of the state. He knows that. I've talked to him about that. But, he's already doing meetings, on the west side of the state. He's making those connections. And some of the polling that I've seen, it's not ours, but, really credible polling, shows that, one, his name ID in the rest of the state is growing substantially. And the other thing is that he is likable. People like him. Even people who don't know him like him.
Yeah, and of course, he's not the only name in the race. We've got John James, a Republican. There's so many on the Democratic side, too. So,
Jocelyn Benson. I mean, it's a strong field.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens there. Okay, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the issues in pocketbooks, tariffs, inflation, things that nobody wants to talk about, money out of my wallet. When we come back. Welcome back to Local 4 Live. A look at how Michigan voters are feeling about the state of things with a new poll from the Detroit Regional Chamber. We've talked about the race for governor here in the state, and now we're talking about something that impacts everybody, tariffs and inflation. We're going to start with the tariffs. Michigan voters, again, asked about how they feel about President Trump's tariffs. 51% are opposed, while 41% support them. About 8% did not have an opinion on them. Now, compared to last year, that's a whole lot. The numbers changed drastically a little bit because tariffs weren't a conversation last year. President, again, of the Detroit Regional Chamber, Sandy Brew, joining us. This is one of those partisan questions, right, where I don't know how much of the conversation is about tariffs or not, and how much of it is just about President Trump and policies. What do you think?
So it is, we're seeing across the board more and more opposition to tariffs. Obviously, Republicans much more supportive of the president's trade policies than Democrats. That's not surprising, right? But as recently as our May poll, it was about 50-50 across the state if you supported tariffs or not. Now, as you just showed, there's almost a 10-point difference of people opposing tariffs.
What's interesting is that I think that tariff conversation goes back and forth almost on a weekly basis, because you remember GM came out with their projections saying that tariffs were going to hit them hard. They came out yesterday saying that didn't hit as hard as they thought it was going to. So when you have that conversation back and forth over and over again, I don't think we're really going to understand the true effects until probably at least a year from now.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And if you're a business owner, or if you're running a large corporation like, say, an automotive company, it's really hard to plan. It's really hard to plan your supply chain. It's really hard to make long-term investment decisions, especially when you run a capital-intensive business, if you don't know what the landscape is going to be.
Okay, let's talk about inflation here for a minute. The inflation numbers, again, voters asked if they expect inflation to get better or worse next year. According to this poll, 43% expect it to get worse, while about 28% expects it to stay the same, and 24% think it's going to get better. Any surprises in those numbers?
Not really, but that number is growing. The other thing is, and again, you hit on it earlier, is where you stand politically really impacts, kind of how you view things. The economy is really not that different today in terms of if you look at unemployment, inflation, GDP today under President Trump than it was kind of during the last quarter or so of President Biden. Now, people don't like me saying that, because if if you're a Trump
you're taking the arguments away.
Yeah, it's like if you're a Trump supporter, it's like, oh my goodness, it's so much better. If you're a Biden supporter, oh, it's so much worse, right? But at the end of the day, if you look at the fundamentals, it's kind of the same. But again, If you're a Republican, you think the economy is doing a lot better today. If you're a Democrat, you think the economy is doing a lot worse. It's basically the flip of what it was, say, a year ago when Joe Biden was finishing up his presidency.
So it's funny you say that, because then we take all these numbers. In fact, we'll put the next poll up here, because you take that and apply it to the actual spending. Voters asked six different areas of spending. They asked if spending was more. 76% of voters said they were spending more on groceries compared to last year. 68% say they are paying more for utilities like electricity, internet, and phone service, and 60% saying they are paying more for their car and home insurance. Those are high numbers, right? Not a surprise there, because we know inflation has gone up. But again, back to the conversation, is the economy better or worse? It depends on which side of the aisle you ask. But when you have those numbers, how do you have that partisan conversation now?
So inflation for the last year has been pretty moderate. Right now, obviously, kind of halfway through Joe Biden's presidency, we had terrible inflation of 9% plus. That was a real killer, especially for working families. But when you see these numbers, yeah, I mean, they're kind of eye-opening numbers. I take them with a little grain of salt, because some of certainly grocery prices have continued to go up. Some of the other utility prices, it's been kind of normal, regular inflation. Nothing shocking.
Yeah, although we have seen a lot of the public utilities raising their rates as well. I wanted to ask you, from a chamber perspective, what do these numbers do for you? How can you take this and then turn it into something tangible?
Yeah, the reason we do so much polling is primarily for, obviously we're a business organization, and we work with business leaders. It's important for business leaders across the state, and particularly in the Detroit region, to really understand what are their customers, their employees, what are they thinking, what are they feeling, so they can kind of, we can help them plan a little bit, in terms of what to prepare for, in terms of where the economy might be going.
It's funny. Every time we have a poll, the conversation almost always goes to politics, right? But in reality, these numbers are for your business members to help them drive what their business should look like. So it doesn't have to be political, but everything is.
Well, we do some political polling.
Yeah, right. Sandy, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you here on a Wednesday.